Let me tell you about two people I know. One of them made over $200,000 a year for most of his career. The other never earned more than $50,000. Guess which one retired with more money? If you said the high earner, you'd be wrong. And that's the problem right there. Most of us think money is about math. Income minus expenses equals wealth, right? But it's not. Because the guy making $200,000 bought a bigger house every time he got promoted. He leased a new car every 3 years. He convinced himself he deserved it. Meanwhile, the other guy lived in the same modest home for 30 years, drove his paid-off sedan until the wheels fell off, and quietly invested the difference. This isn't a story about being cheap. It's not about sacrifice or living miserably. It's about something we almost never talk about when it comes to money. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because the truth is, being good with money has almost nothing to do with how smart you are. It has everything to do with how you behave.
Here's what nobody tells you when you're starting out. You go to school, you learn algebra, maybe even calculus. You memorize formulas. You're taught that intelligence and hard work lead to success. And in a lot of ways, they do. But then you start earning real money, and suddenly none of that matters, because money doesn't behave the way you expect it to. You get a raise, and somehow you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You start investing, but you panic and sell the moment the market drops. You know you should save for retirement, but there's always something more urgent, a vacation, a new phone, something your kids need. And the worst part? You look around and see people who seem to have it all figured out. They're calm, they're not stressed, they're building wealth while you're stuck in the same place. And you start wondering what you're missing. Is it a secret strategy, a special investment, some insider knowledge? The answer is simpler than you think, but it's also harder, because it means admitting that most of our money problems aren't actually money problems. They're behavior problems, they're psychology problems. And that's what we're going to unpack here. Not tips and tricks, not get-rich-quick schemes, but the deep, uncomfortable truth about why we do what we do with money and what it takes to change. Let me start with something that sounds obvious, but we constantly forget. The way you think about money is completely shaped by your own unique experience of the world. And I mean completely. Think about someone who grew up during the Great Depression. Their parents lost everything. They saw neighbors lose their homes. They learned that the world can collapse overnight, and the only thing you can trust is the cash you keep close. Now, compare that to someone who grew up in the 1990s, when the stock market seemed to go up forever. They learned that investing is how you win. Risk is good. Playing it safe means missing out. Neither person is wrong. They're both responding rationally to what they've seen. But here's the thing, they're going to make completely different decisions with their money, and they're both going to think the other person is crazy. I've seen this play out in real life. I know a man who refuses to invest a single dollar in the stock market. He keeps everything in savings accounts, earning basically nothing. His friends think he's paranoid, but when you learn that his father lost his entire retirement in 2008, and had to work until he died at 73, it makes perfect sense. That one experience taught him something no spreadsheet could ever override. And this is why personal finance is personal. We're all walking around with these invisible lessons from our past, and they're running the show. The problem is, we don't realize it. We think we're being logical, but we're actually just playing out the script we learned years ago. Here's something uncomfortable. Some people are rich because they were smart. Some people are rich because they got lucky. And it's almost impossible to tell the difference. Let me give you an example. Bill Gates went to one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer in 1968. Not a common thing. The odds of that were about 1 in a million. That access changed everything. It gave him a head start nobody else had. Now, was Bill Gates smart? Absolutely. Did he work hard? No question. But would he be Bill Gates without that one piece of luck? Probably not. And here's the flip side. His classmate, Kent Evans, was just as talented, just as passionate about computers. They were building projects together. Then Kent died in a mountaineering accident before he graduated high school. Same starting point, same potential, totally different outcome. This is the uncomfortable truth about money. We love to believe that success is earned and failure is deserved. It makes the world feel fair. But luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. When someone succeeds, we say they're brilliant. When someone fails, we say they were reckless. But sometimes the only difference is chance. I'm not saying effort doesn't matter, it does. But once you accept that luck plays a role, a big role, it changes how you think. You stop judging people who are struggling. You stop assuming you've got it all figured out just because things are going well. And most importantly, you start building safety nets because you realize the wind can shift at any moment. There's this thing that happens when you start making more money. At first, it feels incredible. You can afford things you used to dream about. You relax a little. But then something strange happens. The bar moves. You get used to the nicer apartment, the better car, the vacations, and suddenly what felt like enough last year doesn't feel like enough anymore. You start comparing yourself to people who have more, and no matter how much you have, there's always someone with more. This is where people destroy themselves, and I mean that literally. There's a story about Rajat Gupta, a man who had everything. He was the head of McKinsey, one of the most prestigious positions in the world. He had tens of millions of dollars, but he looked around at billionaires and felt poor. So he got involved in insider trading. He risked everything to have more, and he lost it all. Reputation, freedom, everything. The lesson here isn't about greed. It's about knowing when enough is enough. Because if you don't define that line for yourself, you'll keep chasing forever, and the finish line will keep moving. I'll be honest, I've felt this. I've had moments where I looked at my bank account and thought, this is good, I'm doing well. And then I'd see someone else's success and immediately feel behind. It's this reflex we all have. But the people who win with money long term are the ones who step off that treadmill. They decide what enough looks like, and they defend it. Warren Buffett is worth over $100 billion. Most people know that. What most people don't know is that $97 billion of that came after he turned 65. Think about that. He's been investing since he was a kid. He was already rich in his 30s, but the massive wealth, that came from decades of compounding. This is the thing about money that breaks people's brains. We understand compounding intellectually. Money grows on money. We get it, but we don't feel it. Because compounding is invisible for years, and then suddenly it's not. Let me put it this way. If you invest $10,000 and it grows at 10% a year, after 1 year you've got $11,000. Cool. After 5 years, you've got about $16,000. After 10 years, maybe $26,000. You're thinking, this is slow, but after 30 years, you've got $174,000. And after 40 years, over $450,000. Same money, same rate, just time. The problem is, most people don't give it time. They start investing, don't see massive results in year 2 and bail. Or they panic during a down year and sell. Or they think they can beat the market by jumping around. And every time they do that, they reset the clock. I know someone who started investing in their early 20s, nothing fancy, just a basic index fund, and they never touched it. They didn't try to time the market, they didn't get clever, they just let it sit. Fast forward 30 years and they're financially free. Not because they were geniuses, because they were patient. The real skill with money isn't finding the perfect investment, it's doing nothing. It's letting time do the work while you go live your life. Here's a weird thing. We're really good at spotting rich people. The cars, the clothes, the houses. We see someone driving a Mercedes and think, they've got money. But here's what we don't see. The debt, the lease payments, the maxed out credit cards. Real wealth is invisible. It's the money you didn't spend, the car you didn't buy, the vacation you skipped because you were investing instead. Wealth is what's sitting in your account quietly growing, giving you options you don't have to brag about. I think about this every time I see someone pull up in a flashy car. My first thought used to be, man, they're doing well. Now my thought is, I have no idea what their balance sheet looks like. Because I met people who look broke and have millions, and I met people who look rich and are drowning. There's a guy I used to work with who drove a beat-up Honda, wore the same jacket for years, never talked about money. Then one day he casually mentioned he was thinking about retiring early. He was 46. Turns out he'd been maxing out his 401k and living off way less than he made for 2 decades. He had options, freedom, peace of mind, but you'd never know it by looking at him. That's the difference between rich and wealthy. Rich is your income. Wealthy is what you keep. And the irony is, the people trying hardest to look rich are often the ones with the least actual wealth because they're spending it all on the image. Here's something nobody warns you about. The person you are right now is not the person you'll be in 10 years. Your priorities will shift. Your goals will evolve. The things you think you want today might not matter at all tomorrow. This matters for money because we make long-term financial decisions based on who we are right now. You take out a massive mortgage because you think you'll always want the big house. You commit to a career path because you think you'll always care about that title. You save for a specific dream because you think that dream will never fade. And then life happens. You have kids, and suddenly the big house feels like a burden. You get the promotion, and you realize the stress isn't worth it. The dream you saved for doesn't excite you anymore. I've seen this happen over and over. People lock themselves into financial commitments based on a version of themselves that no longer exists, and then they're stuck. They can't pivot because the mortgage is due. They can't walk away because they've built their identity around it. The smarter move is to build flexibility into your plan. Don't stretch yourself to the limit. Don't assume you'll always want what you want today. Give yourself room to change your mind, because you will. We all do. Let me tell you the most important thing you can do with money. It's not about picking the right stocks. It's not about maximizing returns. It's about building room for error. Here's what I mean. Let's say you think you can survive on $3,000 a month. You do the math and it works. But then the car breaks down, or you get sick, or the economy shifts and suddenly everything costs more. If you planned for exactly $3,000, you're in trouble. But if you planned for $3,000 and saved enough for $4,000, you're fine. That extra cushion is room for error, and it's the difference between surviving and thriving. The same thing applies to investing. Most people build their financial plans assuming everything will go perfectly. The market will return 10% a year, they'll never lose their job, nothing unexpected will happen. And then reality hits and the plan falls apart. The people who make it long-term are the ones who assume things will go wrong. They save more than they think they need, they invest conservatively, they don't stretch themselves thin. It's not exciting, it's not sexy, but it works. I think about this as having a margin of safety in life. If you're always operating at 100% capacity, one bad day can wreck you. But if you're at 70%, you can absorb the hit. You can adapt. You can keep going. Here's the thing most people don't realize until it's too late. All these small decisions compound, just like money does. Every time you spend instead of save, that's compounding. Every time you compare yourself to someone else and buy something to keep up, that's compounding. Every time you ignore your future self and focus only on today, that's compounding. And it works both ways. Every time you choose not to buy something you don't need, that compounds too. Every time you stay patient during a down market, that compounds. Every time you invest in your future instead of your image, that compounds. The gap between people who build wealth and people who don't usually isn't about one big decision, it's about 1,000 tiny ones. And the scary part is, those tiny decisions don't feel important in the moment.
Skipping one purchase doesn't change your life, but skipping 100 of them over 10 years, that changes everything. What we're really talking about here is behavior, not intelligence, not luck, though luck plays a role, but behavior. The unsexy, repetitive, boring stuff. Spending less than you earn, staying consistent, ignoring the noise, giving it time. And the hardest part? You won't see the results for years. You're making sacrifices today for a version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. That's why most people quit, because it feels like nothing's happening. But that's the trap. Everything is happening. It's just happening quietly. So what does this actually mean for you? First, get honest about your relationship with money. Not your income, not your credit score, your relationship. What are the invisible lessons you learned growing up? Are you constantly chasing more because you grew up with less? Are you terrified to invest because you saw someone lose everything? You don't have to fix it overnight, but you have to see it. Second, define enough. Seriously, sit down and write it out. What does a good life actually look like for you? Not for your neighbor, not for someone on Instagram, for you. How much do you actually need to feel secure, to feel comfortable? Once you know that number, you can stop chasing, you can stop comparing, you can opt out of the race. Third, build room for error into everything. Whatever you think you need, add a cushion. If you think you need 6 months of expenses saved, go for 9. If you think you can handle a 20% drop in the market, plan for 40%. Because the unexpected will happen. The only question is whether you'll be ready. Fourth, invest for time, not returns. Stop trying to find the next big thing. Stop checking your portfolio every day. Just pick something simple, something boring, and let it sit. The goal isn't to get rich next year. The goal is to be wealthy in 30 years, and that happens by doing nothing more than most people can handle. Fifth, remember that wealth is invisible. Stop trying to look successful and start actually being successful. Drive the boring car, live in the modest house, let people underestimate you, because the freedom you're building in silence is worth more than any image you could project. And finally, give yourself permission to change. Don't lock yourself into a plan that assumes you'll always be the same person. Build flexibility. Keep your commitments light. Protect your ability to pivot, because life will surprise you, and the best financial decision you can make is to stay adaptable.
None of this is complicated. You don't need a finance degree, you don't need a fancy strategy, you don't need to time the market or pick the perfect stock. You just need to behave in a way that aligns with the life you actually want. The truth is, most people know what to do. Spend less than you earn, invest consistently, be patient, don't panic. The hard part is actually doing it, day after day, year after year, while everyone around you is buying things and chasing things and stressing about things. But if you can do that, if you can control your behavior, ignore the noise, and give it time, you'll end up in a place most people never reach. Not because you're smarter, not because you got lucky, though maybe you will, but because you understood something simple. Money isn't about math, it's about psychology. And once you see that, everything changes.